Broker Bulletin acknowledges the traditional custodians of all the lands across the country on which we record our podcast and pays its respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome to the Broker Bulletin podcast, where better begins. Join us as we chat with brokers about what's working for them, what drives them, and the real challenges and wins that matter most right now.
G'day everyone, welcome back to a brand new episode of Broker Bulletin. My name is Leigh Tsoumerkas, State Director for Victoria and Tasmania for Loan Market and President of the Best Interest Mates community for LMG. A little intro, if I may, for two absolute legends. I'll start with Kerry, as I'm lucky enough to have Kerry in my life as both a friend and business colleague. Kerry Kalendra is the founder of MTA Mortgage Brokers and is a massive wellness industry advocate. Kerry is a multi-award winning mortgage broker and a proud MANtalk Wellness and Best Interest Mates ambassador. Welcome, Kerry. Great to have you here, mate.
Thank you.
And now to introduce Todd Duncan. To be honest, I'm a little bit starstruck. Todd is a sales entrepreneur with over 5 million students around the globe that he has mentored and taught real estate, mortgage, banking and financial services. He's the OG of building trust in the mortgage industry. He's the founder and CEO of Todd Duncan Group, the most sought after coaching, training and events company for high performing sales professionals. He's also 2 times New York Times best-selling author with over 22 books. Todd Duncan is a transformative speaker, presenting solutions for the real life challenges that allow you to walk away with a vision, confidence and a plan to get more out of your business and life. His mantra is, you can make a living with transactions, but a fortune with relationships. Welcome, Todd. It's great to have you in Melbourne.
Isn't it good to be back in Melbourne?
Let's start with you. Just a little background of you and your journey.
Yeah. Like most people in brokering, you don't get into it because it was a childhood dream. At 7 years old, you don't go, I want to be a mortgage broker. I happened to have a coach that coached me when I was in baseball in America, and he happened to own one of the largest real estate companies and lending companies. So shortly after graduating, I was at a barbecue party for families, and he said, so what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, well, as far as I'm concerned, you can either be a real estate agent or a mortgage broker. He said, which one do you want to do? And I happened to have a minor in finance, and I enjoyed the numbers, right? And I enjoyed people. So I said, I'm going to be the broker. I'm going to go the broker route. And so I signed on and failed miserably for at least the first 4 months. I ran out of money twice. Did not have any more draw on my commissions. And as good fortune would have it, which is one of the best ideas for mental health and wellness, good fortune is just around the corner. I ran into somebody 10 years my senior, who at that point in time was a multimillionaire. He was dressed beautifully. He knew what he was doing. I watched him in the marketplace. And one day I approached him and I said, I want to be like you. And I think as mentoring always works out, he wanted to help me because somebody helped him. And I think that's the cool thing about mentoring. And so he told me what to do, how to do it. And he made me make a commitment to spend $400 a month with a coach. And he promised me that if in the next month I didn't make at least $4,000, he would pay for the coach. The rest is history. I went on to really target relationships. I went for high performance relationships. I built trust by connecting emotionally. I didn't sell any product, didn't talk about interest rates, didn't do any of that. But every single person that I set an appointment with after the first person I was referred to, which makes everything easier in selling. When you're referred to somebody, it's much easier to pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I was introduced to you by Leigh. You know, Leigh thinks you and I should get together, blah, 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 blah. And it was off to the races. And that first year I did $27 million in volume with an average loan amount of $81,000. That's how long ago I started mortgage brokering. 12 years later, we were just shy of 6,000 units, and we had helped almost 6,000 people finance real estate and build wealth with real estate. And there was a calling. The calling was, maybe I should just teach the rest of the industry how to do what I did. And so that brings us to Melbourne and why we're here today.
And just on that, now you are a CEO, a coach, a speaker, and content creator. How do you design your day to make health a non-negotiable as well?
Yeah, I have a firm belief that the only thing that's really important is staying alive and staying alive in a healthy way. And so I have a pretty rigorous routine. Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, I ride my bicycle at least 45 miles, and I get my heart rate up to about 136. And that's a really great 3 hours for me. I just get into the mental space of being my best version of me. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm at the gym with a personal trainer. Before that happens, I spend a half an hour in just kind of mental fitness. I do mental push-ups with affirmations and I am statements. I'm a big believer that we don't want to wish we can be somewhere. We have to pretend that we are. And when I wrote my first placard on a typewriter back in the day, I am a professional speaker. I earn in excess of $500,000 a year. I always have $200,000 in liquidity to make investments. I have a strong marketing network. I only have healthy habits. I own a 5,000 square foot home with a large yard, pool, spa, tennis court, and an ocean view. I wrote all that down as I am. And so I start my day today, 38 years later, and I start my day today. I am an influencer. I am a knowledge expert. I'm a transformative person. I'm going to meet somebody today whose life's going to be changed. So 30 minutes every morning there, and then taking care of the health piece of it. And here's what's interesting, Leigh, when you take care of the health piece, you simultaneously take care of the mental piece.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for so many of us, and there's a buzzword out there, burnout. We hear that a lot. In high performance leadership and sales, burnout is real. And we see it more and more. And I know Kerry and I have these conversations with certain brokers as well, which is nice that people feel like there's a safe space to talk about it. But again, you mentioned it a little bit there. What would you say is best practice and your go-to strategy to stay energized, focused, and probably in love with not only your work, but life as well?
Yeah. Well, there's a relationship between being happy off the job and being productive and healthy and profitable on the job, right? My mantra has always been, and in fact, the subtitle of high trust selling is make more money in less time with less stress. How do you make more money? You have deeper relationships that refer more people that convert more frequently. That's how you make more money. How do you do that in less time? You build a team around you so that all you do is your highest and best use, just like a medical professional would do, right? You go into an office and you see all the different people, you fill out the paperwork, and in an hour meeting, you might have 15 minutes with the doctor. That's a top performing mortgage broker. Let me give you the advice. Let me connect with you. Let me ask you some questions, and then my team will take over and do everything else. So delegation is the mother lode to freedom. So make more money, have less stress, and have more time. And what I tell mortgage brokers is you could make in a day what you're currently making in a month. And they drop their jaw and they go, what do you mean by that? Well, if all you did was got focused on dollar productive activity and did the one thing really well that makes money and did nothing that doesn't make money, then you're going to be wealthy. And I know people today that have gone from just under $100,000 to over $1 million a year by not working an extra hour. I am a huge, huge believer that you need to stay in your superpower. You need to stay relationally connected. Don't talk to more people to get more business. Talk to fewer people and talk to them better and deeper with a trust and emotional connection, and more people will say yes. The other thing is master the art of follow-up, because you can't be one and done in this business. The value of relationships is if you build them deeply, they will feed you for life. And this is a mic drop moment. If I could drop the mic, I would drop it on my own comment. If you want your customers for life, you got to talk to them during their life. And it's beautiful. Every single appointment we've had in Melbourne in 7 days has been because we know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And that's the key to accelerating your business.
I love that. Follow up and care. All right. Thanks, Todd. Kerry, a little bit about you, mate. I've known you a long time. And I also know that it's been a long journey and you were at the highest of highs at one stage and sort of hit rock bottom. Just, mate, I know we get a bit emotional about it, but how did you recover from being at the top, but you've come back even stronger in every part of your life? Do you want to just talk a little bit about that and how'd you do that?
Interesting question. Well, and I think Todd is going to understand this when I say it, but you have to hit rock bottom and feel the pain to either be able to come back or not come back. And there's the mind. And I'll talk about this tomorrow at our event. The mind is powerful and you got two choices. You either stay where you are and die, or you make some changes and you pursue those. You pursue greatness, and you need help with that. You can't do it alone. I don't know of anybody that can do it alone. So I have the best coaches in the world that I know of that have helped me. This man here, a previous coach and a current coach. By the way, this current coach is 24 years my junior.
Yes.
And I have a guy 24 years my junior who has taken me in 18 months to the next level in my mindset.
Can I just add that everybody needs to understand that you look in the mirror every single day and you have two choices. One is to see the current you and one is to see the vision or version of you you'd like to be. And one of our mottos is nothing changes until something changes, and one change can change everything. And what Kerry did is he did the hard work and made a decision that instead of turning left and taking his life, he turned right and gave it a roll of the dice and said, I'm going to make this work. And I've watched him for 8 years now go from the depths of the despair that Leigh, being a friend of his, to being on top of the world today. It doesn't mean life is a piece of cake. He has challenges just like the next human being, but at least he's alive. And there's only two choices in mental health. One is to pursue your own wellness, which can happen, and to get past despair and depression and anxiety and see joy and greatness and hope. And the other thing is to understand that you can be the change maker in your life. And I want to say this from just a position of real conviction. I have a 29-year-old son and a 27-year-old son, and both have battled addiction for 10 years, and both have been sober for over 3.5 years because they finally made the choice when almost losing their life. If they didn't change, they would die. And the only way to stay alive was to pursue health and wellness and sobriety. And I'm not suggesting to anybody it's an easy journey, but you were on that track where you were ready. I mean, you told me you knew the time, the place, and how you were going to commit suicide. Absolutely. And here you are today, changing the world with Leigh and me. And
absolutely. Change the world for many people. Yeah. In your circle as well. Not to dive, but I know the struggles as you talk about there, Todd, for him, but we've spoken about purpose. Can you define what your purpose is? Because I think there'll be a lot of people out there in the same sort of position that you were maybe a while ago, but maybe define what your purpose is and how has that helped you be the person you are today?
Yeah. Well, the first thing about purpose was this man here sitting in a room in the worst shape of my life when I went through there was nothing else left because I'd experienced I'll call it the greatness, but the material things, like there were no more material things left to enjoy. I felt in my head that I'd already experienced them all, and there was just nothing else to, these material things. But then he said, "But how about purpose?" And I took a back step and fuck. Purpose. You asked me that question, what do I do about purpose in my life now? I need to do, not from a material point of thing anymore about what makes me happy, but I need to do things that I know are going to joy. And the first way to do that is giving back. And so Todd has been an amazing mentor in regards to giving back to not only my team, my friends, my family, but humanity. So one of the first things I did was I got a dog. The second thing I did was buy a house for the dog, and we laugh about that. And the third thing was I rallied up 40 people, and we all met in Nandi in Fiji, and we painted a school. We replanted a garden. We saw that the computer room, all the computers were basically obliterated. And within 2 weeks, I had 20 brand new computers in a school. Mate, that's your purpose. That's what you got to get out of bed for every day now, to do stuff like that.
The shallowness of acquisition and thinking that contentment is what is going to bring you joy is just a falsehood. You can have all the money in the world and be rich and be miserable, and you can have no money and be happy and joyful, and you can be somewhere in between. And what you did is you went from misery and thinking that your identity was about all the stuff you had to realizing that even with that, your heart was empty and your soul was dead. Yeah. And so you rebirth that by giving back when you have that kind of purpose. And then you see when you walk past MTA Brokers and you see all the awards that you've had over the last 4 or 5 years because of your advocacy for helping others, that is your purpose. I mean, you are giving back to a community, you're giving back to a society, you're giving back to an entire industry. And people are alive today because of Kerry Kalendra. We have Kerry on our new platform called Fuel, and his course is called From Hopelessness to Purpose. And it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful.
It's a beautiful story, and one that we love to share. And I know people know about it, but there's probably a lot that don't. Back to you, Todd. You spoke earlier about wellness. When you started, you talked about bike riding and other activities. But today people go, it's too hard. There's not enough time and I'm too busy. From your point of view, what's one health or wellness shift that you made in the last 5 years, even recently, that completely changed your performance or mindset?
There's a lot, but when I was diagnosed with cancer 9 years ago, it was a wake-up call. And when you have a doctor call you and say, your tests have come back positive, you have cancer, you tend to rethink everything. And I think, Leigh, one of the big things in this is we tend to have these reset moments, right? For Kerry, it was having all the external stuff and then running out of emotional and physical health. For me, it was being successful and having plenty of books published and people everywhere. But then when you have cancer, you're kind of neutralized. That any fame you have or any fortune you have or anything you've done really takes second place to the issue at hand. And so what I did is I brought in 3 mental doctors, health doctors, diet doctors, and I said, what is the best thing for me to do to have the odds that I will never have cancer again? And they laid out this plan for me. And so I went through a wellness program with food and diet. I went through a wellness program with mindset and the whole mastery around health and what that looks like. And then I started associating myself with people that had made decisions to stay away from drugs and alcohol because I would have the normal glass of wine or something like that. And when you have cancer, one of the things you don't want is you don't want excess or bad sugar in your body. So I gave that up. And not that it was ever debilitating for me, but I have so much joy and clarity when you make these physical decisions. I lost 65 pounds when I had the cancer diagnosis. And when people say it's hard, anything worth doing is hard. The easy road is easy because everybody's on it. It's easy to get on. It's easy to stay on. The hard road is called the hard road because it's hard to get on. It takes discipline and it's harder to stay on and it's easy to fall off. We all have hard. We all have our uglies. And the more you dream and the more you want to go big, the more resistance you're going to get from the world that thinks negatively. One of the things I learned very early on is that if you're optimistic and you see the glass is half full and it's just not a pipe dream, that you work to build your skills so that you can have a half full life or better, you'll outsell everybody by 40 to 50%. If you're negative, the world will cave in on you and you're going to blame everybody else. Let me just say to everybody too, we all have exactly the same amount of time. They say that tomorrow's a mystery, yesterday is history, today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. It is a present. And the question you have to answer is, you don't know when your clock's going to run out unless you take your own life. You don't know when a car might hit you. You don't know when you're going to get a doctor that calls you and says, you've got an issue, you've got 15 days to live. You don't know any of that. The only thing you know is today is a gift, and the time you have today has to be optimized. Don't blame other people. Take responsibility for your life. You can do everything you want and anything you want. And I just believe that until your dying moment, there's a reason you're alive, and you should optimize that reason, period. And once you have the momentum of this, Leigh, it's hard to go the other way.
Yep.
It's hard to go the other way.
Momentum.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, sport, life, that's key, right?
Yeah.
Put yourself back 30 years or longer for young brokers out there, and obviously our, LMG brokers, finance brokers, probably listening to this. And for those that are just starting out or finding it a little bit tough, what can you share about your journey? And Todd, I'll ask the same question to you around resilience and mindset shifts, throughout the journey. Let's just say, and for the broken businesses out there today, some are thriving and some are not, and some good days, some bad. What's your word of advice to them?
There's a couple of things there. The first one is, this is year 23 in mortgage broking. So there's been a lot of change. I started out by myself. I had a business partner in the early days who absolutely ripped me off badly. I got burnt. I said I'd never, ever have a business partner again. And I think that was the mistake, because that's when I decided, I don't know if you're going to call it greed, but I started building up a good mortgage book trail, and it was like, it's mine and no one's coming near it. You don't get my clients, you don't get my book, that's mine. That was the mistake, because I had all this money and then I could afford KFC is my thing. I could afford expensive Californian Chardonnay, so 3 bottles a night was not an issue. So I had an expensive alcohol habit. Things started going rapidly downhill because I felt like shit, to be frank, the next morning, and I couldn't operate properly. And then everything else just spiraled, and I was still successful when I say successful, I couldn't keep up with the clients, but it all caught up. There was stress, and people, my best friend was saying, why don't you just back off? Don't take on as many clients. And I said, I can't do that. You know why? Because I was addicted to the money.
Yeah. And what I would say to the young broker especially is, besides this whole conversation of purpose, is when you're a young broker starting off, you have to pay attention to the long game in the short term. And the long game in the short term is understand that who you meet today might become a client in a month, a year, or a couple of years. And so one of my mottos as a brand new broker was, I didn't want to call on more people. I wanted to call on the right people. So I never set an appointment with anybody that could refer business to me without a referral. And that made all the difference. And I could set appointments with a 90% appointment success rate. So get people referring you, number one. Number two is remember that if you understand relationship selling, it's never a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. And by way of illustration, my number one referral partner from the time I met her to the time I got my first referral from her took 18 months. And where most brokers would give up and turn tail and run away and say, I just got rejected, so let me go call on somebody else. I would say, not only did I not get rejected, no is not permanently. It's just no right now. Yeah. So what I did in 18 months is I gave this person, somewhere around 80 ideas on how to build a better business. And I just delivered little photocopies of marketing and things like that. And when her broker messed up 18 months later, Leigh, this is going to blow your mind. I'm 24 years old. And in one day, I got 12 loans for over $1 million. And she became my partner in the next 3.5 years, my business partner. In the next 3.5 years, she referred me 700 of those 6,000 loans. Wow. And so what I want to say to the young broker is you're going to be somewhere in 5 years. Make sure that you're not just 1 year, 5 times. Make sure you actually have 5 times experience. In 60 months, you can look back as a young broker today and you can have your book of business. You can have the life you want. You can make the money you want. And you don't have to succumb to the pressures of the world to try to make more money by doing more things. Busyness is the evil of greatness. Yeah. And so busy doing what? And if your answer to busy doing what is, well, this, that, Google, marketing, printing, blah, 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 even deal structure, sometimes you're doing the things that don't pay the most amount of money for the time you're giving. And this is the only life we have. Every minute matters.
And Todd, just now to go to the other end of the scale, not the brokers that have been doing it for a while, probably staying motivated. And you talked about momentum. What's your advice for those brokers that have been doing it for 20 odd years?
I think everybody, for me anyway, I did something very unique. I had to answer the question at the age of 34. So what's next? I mean, I love doing loans. I loved helping people finance wealth through real estate, but I felt I had a bigger calling. And I had been asked the last 2 or 3 years, if I would mind speaking at this Chamber of Commerce or mind speaking at this real estate agent event or this or that. And so my next move was, so what's next? Well, what's next is if I could teach a person to do what I did, and I could teach 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people or 5 million people on how to be more successful and be more intentional and purposeful and have less stress and have more joy, that would be my next calling. But in between, what I did is I sold my practice to my team. And so my team of 14 took over this practice and I did a 5-year buyout with them and they bought my business and I made millions of dollars in that movement. They didn't have to give me any cash. So I would say to the more seasoned broker, I know a broker in Australia that sold his book. It was $1 billion book. And then he started a podcast because he wanted to give back and change the lives of people. Why am I doing what I'm doing today? I've been a speaker for 30 years. I've written, almost 20. The 23rd book is on its way right now. I wake up every day, Leigh, and this new company that I started as a response to COVID, we won't even get into that, but it's like my whole motivation to do what I'm doing now is to tear down the walls of education around the world and help people anywhere in the world become their best version of themselves possible. And I have 65 instructors right now on our site that are helping the world in 53 countries become a better version of themselves. Why am I doing that? Well, I'm alive. I still have a brain. I still have a dream. And every time I see somebody send us a 5-star review, thanks for changing my life, I tell them, I didn't change your life. You changed your life. I didn't change Kerry's life. Kerry changed his life. I just showed up at the right time with the right message that resonated. So be purposeful. And if you're still alive, you have stuff to do. If you're still breathing, that doesn't mean we can't have more recreation, more retirement, more cruises, more vacations, this and that. But why spend 20 years building a business if you don't do something to value it and give it to somebody else, sell it to somebody else, and then do something else?
Great advice. And talking about advice, as a leader of people myself, always looking to learn. And I'm one of the advocates for health and fitness. But when things get a bit tighter, you get a bit busier, like we talked about that, sometimes to stay ahead in business, like I feel like I have to sacrifice something, and typically it is health and it's the fitness part of it. What's your advice for someone like myself that probably when it gets a bit busy, you're like, put fitness to one side so you can concentrate on family and work?
So there's one of my associates is James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. And one of the things he talks about in Atomic Habits is the idea of the aggregation of marginal gain, right? And I think what happens when we try to think about balancing our life when times get busy and so on, Leigh, we tend to go like over here, and then we tend to come way back here, and then we tend to overcorrect because we haven't paid attention to health, or we haven't, paid attention to our kids, or this or that, the other thing. And I had a breakthrough when I talked to Tina Wallenda, who was part of the Wallenda Highwire Act long before Cirque du Soleil came along. And I asked him, I said, when you're 100 feet up in the circus and there's no net below and you're walking the high wire, what's the key to staying balanced on the high wire? And he looked at me and he said, the same key to being balanced in life. And I go, what's that? And he goes, you can never stop moving. But the problem is, if you on the high wire don't understand that the little movements keep you balanced and you don't pay attention to that, then you will over oscillate and then you'll fall. So my advice to everybody is you have to make the priority the priority. And the reason why the priority has to be health is because everything gets easier when you get healthier. So it's an excuse to say, I'm going to put health on the sidelines because I'm too busy. The way to do it is say, I'm going to make health the priority because then I won't be as busy. I'll be more focused and more productive and more lasered in, right? There's not one person listening to this podcast, watching this, that would say, I don't feel better when I do something healthy. And there's a lot of people that say, I can't get healthy because the business. So you have to choose what's going to rule your life. And a business that is run the wrong way is the fast track to you having the opposite of healthy, wealthy mindsets. And we have this reservoir of emotional wealth. You can only have it if you pay attention to the priorities. And what I will tell everybody is an ignored priority becomes a bigger priority. The longer you ignore it, the more important it will become in your life. And so let's pay attention to first things first. Let's pay attention to getting the joy out of the things that fuel us for the rest of the day. Let's start the day off right. Mindset matters. Health matters. Nutrition matters. And everything else is an excuse. Honestly, I'm not trying to be callous or hard, but you are the captain of your own ship. You are in charge of your destiny, and there's a reason you're here. And don't make excuses. Take personal responsibility. Live the life that you have been gifted to have, and live it to the fullest of your ability. And you'll look back and you'll have joy and you'll have less regret. And we all make mistakes and stuff happens. But my friend who has no fingers and no arms and lost his face in a fire and then flew his plane and crashed and is in a wheelchair for life, W. Mitchell says, there's 10,000 things I could do before I was injured. Now there's only 9,000. I can focus on the 1,000 I can't do, or I can focus on the 9,000 I can do. And this is his classic line. It doesn't matter what happens to you. It matters what you do about it.
Yeah. Wow. Very powerful, Kerry, isn't it? I spoke about how you're such an advocate for, wellness in our, not only in industry, but the community as well. What are you doing at the moment in the wellness space and, giving back to our broken community?
Wow.
And obviously, like I mentioned, the wider community in general.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was just thinking about this as you were going to ask this question, but I'm going to say, it was back in 2019 when we were at Todd's Sales Mastery event. I met my first mindset coach, and one of the things that I took away from that, I embraced and now take it to a lot of people will tell me that I take it to the most insane level, but wellness is my first priority, because if you're not well, you can't be good for yourself, your dog, your team, your family, your close friends. And so when I tell you this and people hear this, my first priority is $26,000 a year to go to a wellness club, which covers every genre of wellness that you can imagine. We just actually left the club and he introduced himself to Tim Gurner. People go, why are you spending $26,000? What a waste of money. Can you believe people would say that? There are people out there who would spend more on restaurants and wine per year than that. So you got to put it in perspective. What's going to give you more greatness, restaurants and wine, or a wellness club that makes me the best version of myself to then make my team the best version of myself and our industry the best version of themselves?
Now add the other coach.
And
how much is that?
Wow. Yeah. So I spend $7,500 US per annum on a an amazing 32-year-old mindset coach who, by the way, openly shares that he went through the same things as me, and that's why we get on so well. And I know that he gets me. And I said, you know what? I'm 4 kilograms off my goal weight, which has been it's been a journey. But I said, once I reach that, it's not over. I'm not leaving you, because you guys have helped me become the best, even a better version of myself than previously. And the other thing is, I've had an intense 8 weeks preparing for this man's arrival. And so, as any good mentor will tell you, you need extra coaching in that 8 weeks to keep you on point. And that's what I did. So I paid for extra coaching, and I got through it without any stress.
And I think when people say that's a lot of money or that's too expensive, let me tell you what is really unfortunate: to not be healthy and to not be in the right mindset and take, twice as long or 3 times as long to get the same results. People look at me and they say, why should I listen to you? What I will say lovingly is, I did in 10 years what you're going to take 40 years to do. And I love you, and I'm not trying to be a jerk or an ass, but you just have to decide. I mean, you're gonna work anyway. So if you're trading life force for 4 decades to do what you could do in 1 decade, how expensive is too expensive?
Thank you. I will ask Todd for his last little message to our network and our community.
My message is real simple: fall in love with your life and achieve ultimate prosperity in the process. I've seen it happen to millions of people. You can decide where you want to be tomorrow, and you can decide where you want to be next week. And the minute that you start to understand that you're the captain of your own ship, you can say no to everything getting in the way of you having the life of your dreams. And you can start to say yes, because you've mastered saying no to people and processes and things that just drag you down. You can now say yes to the things that bring you joy. Imagine awakening. Imagine having a couple conversations with borrowers. Imagine both borrowers that day saying, I'm in, let's go. And imagine you being done at 1:00 and then deciding, what do I do with the rest of my day? What a joyful, or do twice the volume in 1 day. And, somebody told me one day, they said 24/7, it's how most brokers work. And he said, I have a different mindset around 24/7. And I said, what is it? He goes, my goal is to work as a mortgage broker 24 hours a week, 7 months a year.
Love it. Well, love it. I could sit here all day. Everything you said about Todd is true and more. Yeah. It's been a pleasure to host you both. Thank you for joining Broker Bulletin.
Yeah. Really great being here.
It's very insightful, and hopefully our audience has words of wisdom there that we can all take and learn from. Thanks so much for listening. If you have a topic you want to discuss, please email us at brokerbulletin@lmg.broker or direct message us on Instagram at lmg.broker, and our producer will make sure we answer it as soon as possible. If you like this episode, make sure you rate it and follow us in your favorite pod store. Yes. Thanks again, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks,
Have
Leigh.
a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leigh.
Thanks for tuning in to Broker Bulletin. We would hate for you to miss an episode. Subscribe to Broker Bulletin in your favorite podcast app. Has this episode been helpful? We'd love you to rate and review us. It'll help us deliver content that's useful to you and help others discover us. If you have great ideas for topics worth tackling or have burning questions you'd like addressed on an upcoming episode, reach out. Links in the show notes. See you next time.